All right, let's do this. Get ready for a deep dive into something really cool. Transition words.
Ooh, yeah.
We've got a ton of research and notes on this, but we're going to kind of like boil it down to the essentials, the stuff that really matters.
Right. Like the biggest bang for your buck.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I think it's funny, right?
Yeah.
We spend so much time on vocabulary and grammar.
Yeah.
All the sort of like quote unquote rules.
Well, right.
But transition words, which are so important for sounding fluent and confident and persuasive, they often get overlooked.
It's true. And one of the things that really jumped out at me from the research is like how transition words can help us avoid that, that and problem we all have sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
We're all guilty of it.
So instead of saying, I went to the store and I bought milk and then I came home, you could say, I went to the store after picking up some milk, I headed back home.
Yes. It's so much smoother.
Much smoother, much more, sophisticated.
So the sources that we looked at, they break down transition words into all these categories. And one that I thought was really cool was adding information. So it's not just like listing things, but it's building on your idea.
Yeah, it's all about connecting the dots, right?
Exactly.
Like making your speech flow,
yeah,
showing how one idea leads to the next.
And they give us some examples like moreover and furthermore. Those sound kind of fancy, right?
Yeah, they have a sort of a touch of formality.
Yeah.
Which actually makes them very effective.
Okay.
It's not like you're just, you're not just throwing out random thoughts.
Right.
You're showing that you put some thought into this.
Yeah.
Imagine like, you're making a presentation. This product is going to increase efficiency. Furthermore, it will save you money in the long run.
You sound like a CEO suddenly.
Right.
No, what about when you want to give an example to support your point? And you're in a more casual setting, like you're having dinner with friends.
Sure.
What would you use then?
I think to illustrate is a nice way to do that.
Okay.
It signals to your listener that you're about to, paint a picture with your words.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So let's say you're talking about a concert you went to. The concert was amazing. To illustrate, the lead singer did this incredible guitar solo that had the entire crowd on their feet.
I can hear it. I can hear it now. Now, another one that I was really curious about is the contrasting ideas category. So, sometimes you want to spice things up a little bit.
Absolutely.
Throw in a little debate, a little friendly disagreement.
Yeah.
And the sources point to however, on the other hand, and nevertheless.
Right.
So those all show contrast, but is there a subtle difference between those three?
Yeah, that's a great question. However, I would say is kind of your go-to for a simple, straightforward contrast.
Okay.
Like, I love pizza, however, I try not to eat it every day.
Okay, yeah.
On the other hand, I think introduces a more balanced perspective.
Okay.
So you're kind of like, you're presenting both sides of the coin.
Right.
Like you're weighing the pros and cons. On the one hand, working from home is really convenient. On the other hand, I kind of miss the social interaction of being in an office.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like you're setting up almost like a mini debate within your sentence.
Exactly.
Exactly.
That's a good way to think about it.
And then nevertheless, I think is kind of your secret weapon for adding a little bit of drama. Like it suggests a sense of perseverance despite obstacles. The marathon was grueling. Nevertheless, I finished the race.
Yeah, like I did it anyway.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered adding information, contrasting ideas. What else? What other gems have we got? Well, let's talk about cause and effect. I mean, this is where you really get to show off your logical thinking skills.
Okay, yeah.
And two of the real heavy hitters here are as a result and therefore.
Okay. So how do those make me sound like a logic master?
Well, they show the relationship between actions and outcomes.
Right. Okay.
They create this clear line of reasoning. So, for example, we implemented a new marketing strategy. As a result, our sales increased by 15%.
Like you're connecting the dots, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
And therefore is kind of similar.
It is similar. I think it often implies more direct, conclusive relationship.
Yep.
Like, the traffic was terrible this morning, therefore I was late for work.
Can't argue with that.
Nope, nope.
So we've covered adding information, contrasting ideas, cause and effect.
Yeah, we're on a roll.
I'm feeling pretty good about this, I gotta say.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's more, right?
Oh, there's so much more. I mean, we haven't even touched on, disagreeing politely or expressing time, or even like concluding your thoughts in a really effective way. We're just getting started.
Okay, let's keep going.
Okay, so let's dive into those tricky disagreements we talked about.
Yeah.
Because of the sources we looked at, they really emphasize sounding polite and respectful, especially when you don't agree with someone.
Right.
Nobody wants to be a jerk.
Right, exactly.
Especially at work or even like with your family.
Yeah.
You want to be able to disagree without sounding like you're attacking the other person.
Right.
So how do you do that?
Yeah, how do you walk that fine line?
I think it's all about, you have to assert your viewpoint,
Okay.
but you also have to acknowledge the other person's perspective.
Yeah.
Right? And transition words can help you do that.
Okay.
They can help you strike that balance.
So give me an example, like let's say a friend wants to go hiking, but I'd rather just stay home and chill.
Sure.
How do I say no without sounding, lazy or whatever?
Well, you could say, I appreciate that you want to go hiking, but I'm feeling a bit tired today. Maybe we could do something more low-key instead.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So you see how it creates a contrast, but it's not dismissive.
Right.
You're not just like, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
You're acknowledging their idea.
Right.
But you're also, you're stating your own preference.
And I like the suggestion at the end to kind of offer an alternative.
Exactly.
Okay, that's good.
And you could even take it a step further.
Okay.
You can add a phrase like, I understand where you're coming from, or I see your point, but.
Yeah, those are good.
So you're really showing that you're listening.
Right.
And you're considering their perspective.
Okay, I'm definitely going to try those out. So we talked about disagreeing, but what about telling a story?
Uh-huh.
And you want to keep the listener engaged, keep them kind of on the edge of their seat.
Sure.
Are there transition words that can help with that?
Oh, absolutely. Remember that word meanwhile?
Oh, yeah.
That we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
That's a great one for adding suspense.
Okay, how so?
Well, imagine you're telling a story, a mystery or something.
Uh-huh.
And you could say, I was searching for clues in the library.
Oh.
Meanwhile, my partner was interviewing witnesses at the crime scene.
Oh, wow.
So it's like you're creating these two parallel narratives.
Yeah.
And it's building suspense
Nice.
because things are happening at the same time.
I can see the movie like playing in my head as you're describing it.
Exactly. Right. Meanwhile is all about that simultaneity, right? Things happening at the same time.
Okay, that's cool.
Another thing I think about is in a more professional setting, if you're giving a presentation, for example,
Yeah.
You've got those words like first, next, then, and finally.
Mm-hmm.
Those are really good for guiding the listener through your argument,
Right.
or your presentation.
Right.
They're like road signs. They
Yeah.
show people where you're going.
And they make you sound so organized too.
Absolutely. It shows that you've thought this through.
Yeah.
That you have a plan.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah.
Adding information, contrasting ideas, cause and effect, disagreeing politely, building suspense,
Yeah.
and explaining things clearly.
We are on fire.
We are on fire. But what about those all-important conclusions?
Yeah.
How do we wrap it all up?
Well, that's where those summarizing and concluding transitions come in.
Okay.
You've got the classics like in conclusion, to sum up, and
Yeah.
overall.
Yeah.
But I think a really powerful one is in short.
Okay.
It conveys this sense of efficiency and authority.
I like that.
It's like, okay, I've said what I need to say, and now here's the bottom line.
Yeah.
Right. So you could say something like, in short, investing in this project is a no-brainer.
Boom. Mic drop.
Exactly. So, I think what's really cool about transition words is that they're like the finishing touches on a work of art.
I like that.
Like they add this polish, they add sophistication, they add clarity
Yeah.
to your communication.
But you don't have to like memorize a whole dictionary of them.
Yeah, no, not at all.
So where should people start? What's a good way to get into this?
I think it's about starting small and being mindful.
Okay.
Pick a few transitions from each category that you like, and just try using them consciously
Okay.
in your conversations, in your writing.
Yeah.
Just pay attention to how they feel,
Yeah.
how they impact the flow of your words.
That's great advice. It's like anything else, the more you practice, the more natural it becomes.
Exactly. And you know what else I think is really helpful?
What's that?
Is paying attention to how other people use transition words.
Okay.
You know, listen to podcasts, watch TED Talks,
Oh, yeah.
read articles by great writers,
Yeah.
and you'll start to notice the patterns. You'll start to see how they use transitions to guide their audience.
It's like a free masterclass.
It is. It's like a behind-the-scenes look at how the pros do it.
So as we're wrapping up this part of our deep dive,
Yeah.
what's one final, piece of wisdom you would share about mastering transitions?
I would say the key thing to remember is that transition words are tools. They're not tricks.
Right.
They're not about sounding, smarter or more sophisticated than you are.
Yeah.
It's really about expressing yourself
Right.
clearly, confidently, and authentically.
I like that a lot. It's not about, being someone you're not. It's really about using language as like a way to connect with people,
Yeah, exactly. And making your message more impactful,
Yeah.
more engaging. And transitions are a big part of that.
It's funny you say that. I was reading one of the sources we looked at.
Yeah.
And it mentioned how transition words can actually like affect our mood. And how we kind of perceive the world around us. So it's like they're not just connecting ideas, but also like emotions.
That's really interesting. I mean, there's a whole field of study called cognitive linguistics that looks at that connection between language and thought.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it turns out that even little changes in the words we use can change how we understand and feel about things.
So would you say that like mastering transitions isn't just about sounding better, but it's about like thinking better?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a connection there. When you're more aware of the little nuances of language, you're more tuned into how words can shape our perceptions, and that can make you a more a more critical thinker, more persuasive speaker, and an even more empathetic listener.
It's like we've discovered this whole secret world of communication almost that most people aren't even aware of.
Right. It's like we've cracked the code.
Yeah.
And now we can use that to our advantage to make our communication more effective, more meaningful, more enjoyable even.
I'm ready to start using all this stuff, honestly. I'm gonna start paying more attention to how I use transitions in my everyday conversations. It's like a fun little challenge.
Yeah, I love that. And remember, even small changes can make a big difference. Just try incorporating 1 or 2 new transitions a day. You'll be surprised how quickly they become like second nature to you.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into transition words, what's one final thought, one kind of provocative thought you would leave our listener with?
Well, I would encourage our listener to think of transition words as bridges.
Okay, yeah.
They connect ideas, they connect people,
Yep.
and they connect us to this wider world of communication.
Yeah.
And the more bridges we build, the stronger, the more vibrant our communication becomes.
That's a really beautiful way to put it. It's a great reminder that language is powerful. It's a way to connect and understand each other.
Absolutely.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive. We hope you've enjoyed this journey into the fascinating world of transition words, and we challenge you to go out there and use this knowledge to take your communication skills to the next level.
Hey, everyone. Ready to become a reading rock star?
I like that reading rock star.
Well, because today we're diving deep into how to power up those English reading skills.
Awesome.
Whether you're prepping for a big exam or just want to finally conquer that massive book everyone keeps talking about,
Yeah.
this is for you.
Absolutely.
We're taking an awesome podcast episode called 10 Tips to Improve Your Reading Skills for Beginners.
Yeah.
And dissecting it,
Okay.
extracting those little gold nuggets that you can put into practice today.
Love it.
So no more feeling overwhelmed or lost.
Yeah. No more information overload.
Exactly. Let's jump right in. Tip number 1 is all about
Okay.
starting simple.
Makes sense.
It's so tempting to just grab the most complex,
Yeah.
super intellectual book.
Right.
But just you wouldn't climb Mount Everest without any training.
Good point.
You don't want to jump into War and Peace.
Yeah, you'll just set yourself up for failure.
Totally. The podcast episode really emphasizes that starting with achievable material is key.
It's all about building that foundation.
Exactly. Like, think children's books.
Oh, yeah.
Graded readers for English learners.
Perfect example.
That way you can, like, grasp the fundamentals without feeling totally lost.
And you know those small wins, those early victories?
Yes.
They really fuel your motivation to keep going.
Makes total sense. Tip number 2 is something I actually used when I was learning Spanish.
Oh, really? I'm intrigued.
Reading aloud.
Oh, wow.
I know it can feel kind of silly at first,
I can imagine.
but trust me, there's a method to this madness.
Okay, I'm listening.
It helped me so much with pronunciation and just like getting comfortable with the language.
There's actually a lot of science behind this.
Really?
Oh, yeah. When you read aloud, you're using multiple senses at once.
Ah, I see.
You're seeing the words and hearing them simultaneously.
Makes sense.
And that strengthens the neural pathways in your brain responsible for language processing.
So it's like a workout for your brain.
Exactly. Think of it like building a superhighway for information.
So it's not just about pronunciation then?
Nope, not at all. It actually helps with comprehension and remembering what you read, too.
Wow, that's amazing. I never thought of it that way.
It's kind of like when you were a kid learning your first language.
Yeah.
You spent a lot of time listening to others talk and then repeating what you heard.
Right.
Reading aloud taps into that same process.
Fascinating. So it's like we're tapping into our inner child.
In a way, yes.
Oh.
And that brings us to the third tip.
Okay, what's next?
It builds on this idea of being active.
Active reading.
Yes. The episode talks about how important it is to understand new words in context.
Oh, yeah, I remember this one. Instead of just memorizing a word,
Right.
you learn it as part of a sentence.
Exactly. Like the podcast gives a great example.
Lay it on me.
Instead of just learning the word happy, learn it in a sentence like, she was happy because she got a new puppy.
Oh, that's a good one.
Rad. It just makes it stick so much better.
It's like the word comes alive.
Exactly. You're not just learning the definition, you're understanding its emotional weight.
Yeah. You get a sense of like why she's happy.
And how that word connects to other words.
It paints a picture.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got starting simple, reading aloud, and learning in context.
Powerful stuff, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
What are tips 4 and 5?
Well, they're all about using tools to enhance your reading experience.
Okay, tools and resources.
The podcast suggests using a bilingual dictionary.
Which makes sense, especially if you're a beginner.
Yeah, it's like having a translator right there with you.
Helping you navigate those tricky words and phrases.
And then tip number 5 goes hand in hand with that one.
Oh, okay, I'm curious.
It's about using visuals.
Like pictures.
Yeah, the podcast talks about picture books.
Right.
Which are great for beginners, obviously, but even experienced readers can benefit from creating their own mental images.
Oh, I see.
Like visualizing what you're reading can be a game changer.
I can imagine.
It takes those words on the page and turns them into like a movie in your mind. It makes the information so much more engaging and memorable.
So you're not just reading words, you're experiencing a story.
Precisely.
All right, so we're halfway through our deep dive into these 10 tips.
Feeling empowered yet?
I know I am. Starting simple, reading aloud, learning in context, using a bilingual dictionary, and visualizing what we read.
It's like we're assembling our reading toolkit.
I love that analogy. But we've only just scratched the surface.
There's so much more to explore.
I can't wait.
Okay, so we're back, ready for more reading tips.
Oh yeah, hit me with those next gems.
All right, so tip number 6.
Okay.
This one's all about consistency.
Makes sense. Got to stay committed, right?
Absolutely. The podcast really emphasizes making reading a regular habit.
Like even just a few minutes each day.
Exactly. Even 5 minutes can make a difference.
I can see that.
It all adds up.
I know, but finding the time is tough.
I hear ya. Everyone's busy.
But I guess you're right. Every little bit counts.
Think of it this way. 5 minutes a day is over 30 hours of reading in a year.
Wow, that puts it into perspective.
Right.
Okay, I'm convinced. Gotta make time for reading.
Awesome. Now let's move on to tip number 7.
Okay. I'm all ears.
This one encourages readers to ask questions.
While they're reading.
Exactly.
I actually started doing that recently.
Oh, yeah.
And it's been a game changer.
I bet. It turns reading into a conversation.
Yeah, instead of just passively taking in the words.
Right, you're actively engaging with the text.
I feel like I'm actually understanding and remembering more.
Exactly. It's like you're digging deeper, making connections.
Okay, so consistency and asking questions.
Powerful stuff.
What's next? Give me tips 8 and 9.
Okay, so these focus on audiobooks and summarizing.
Audiobooks, I love those.
Yeah, they're great, especially if you're an auditory learner.
Plus, you can listen to them anywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Commuting, exercising, even doing chores.
And summarization, that's a good one too.
It really forces you to think about what you've read.
Yeah, like, can I explain the main points in my own words?
Exactly. If so, you're on the right track.
If not.
Well, it might be a sign you need to reread certain sections.
Makes sense.
It's all about active learning.
I'm loving these tips.
Ah!
All right, what's the final tip, the grand finale?
This one's simple but super important. Be patient and have fun.
Yeah, I was hoping they'd mention that.
Sometimes we get so caught up in being perfect.
Right, we forget to enjoy the process.
Learning a language should be enjoyable.
It's like exploring new worlds.
Discovering new perspectives.
Totally. And there's so many ways to make reading fun.
Absolutely. Choose books you actually like.
Yeah, join a book club.
Start a reading challenge with friends.
The possibilities are endless.
The key is to find what works for you.
Make reading a part of your life you actually look forward to.
Exactly. So as we're wrapping up this deep dive, remember becoming a proficient reader is a journey.
It's not a race.
It takes time, effort, and, a willingness to embrace the ups and downs.
I agree. There will be times when you feel frustrated.
For sure.
But every step you take is a step in the right direction.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Mistakes are part of the learning process.
Embrace them, analyze them, learn from them.
Okay, we've explored these 10 tips in depth.
From start to finish.
But there's one final point I want to touch on before we wrap up. It's like, how do we actually make these tips work for us?
Yeah, it's one thing to hear them.
Right.
But actually putting them into practice is where the magic happens.
Because what works for one person might not work for another.
Exactly. Some people love audiobooks.
Yeah.
Others prefer holding a physical book.
Totally. So it's all about experimenting, right?
For sure. Try reading aloud one day.
Okay.
Then try visualizing the next.
I like that.
See what clicks for you.
It's about finding your own groove.
Exactly. And that kind of brings me to the thought I want to leave our listeners with today.
Okay, I'm ready.
Think about just one thing you'll read differently or more often starting today.
Ooh, I love that. It's a challenge.
It is. Because knowledge without action...
Well, it's kind of useless, right?
It's like a seed that never gets planted.
Ooh, that's a good analogy.
It has potential, but it needs the right conditions to grow.
And those conditions come from us.
Exactly. Choose your reading material wisely.
Right.
Make time for it every day.
Even if it's just for a few minutes.
Exactly. Embrace the tools and techniques that work for you.
And most importantly,
have fun.
Yes. Make it enjoyable.
Because when you enjoy something, you naturally want to do it more.
So true. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have 10 amazing tips.
From starting simple to having fun.
And everything in between.
I hope our listeners feel empowered to, level up their reading skills.
I think they do.
So go out there, explore the world of books, and remember...
You're not alone on this journey.
We're all in this together.
Happy reading, everyone. You ever notice how some people just have the perfect word for everything? It's like they've got this secret vocabulary that makes them sound super smart.
Yeah.
Well, good news, because today we're unlocking that secret vocabulary.
Sounds good.
We're doing a deep dive into 33 advanced English words, phrases, and idioms for everyday conversations.
Oh, nice.
We're going to cover 11 words, 11 phrases, and 11 idioms.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is,
Yeah.
But it's going to be fun, and you'll be able to impress all your friends.
I like it.
Okay, so let's start with words.
Okay.
We're not going to bore you with basic definitions that you can find anywhere.
Right.
We're going to focus on the good stuff,
That's the juicy stuff.
Exactly, the juicy stuff. So, take the word meticulous.
Okay.
Sure, it means being careful and precise.
Right.
But there's more to it than that.
Oh, yeah.
When you think about a meticulously crafted argument or a meticulously planned event, it just gives us this impression of competence,
Like you really know what you're doing.
Exactly, like you've mastered it.
Yeah, I see that.
It can also be a little bit tricky.
How so?
Well, because sometimes that meticulousness can turn into perfectionism.
Yeah, too much of a good thing.
Right, and then it's not so good anymore.
There's that saying, perfect is the enemy of good.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to a word I absolutely love. Serendipity.
Ooh, that's a good one.
It's more than just those happy little accidents,
Yeah, it's about being open to those moments, recognizing them when they happen.
It's like having that curious mindset, like being willing to go with the flow.
Definitely.
Have you ever changed your plans last minute and it led to something amazing?
Oh, all the time. Actually,
Gosh.
some of my best discoveries happened because I was open to detours in my research.
It's like those detours, those unexpected turns, they reveal something new.
Yeah, about ourselves, about the world around us.
Exactly. Okay, last word for this round. Ephemeral.
Ephemeral.
It's all about things being fleeting, temporary.
Yeah, especially relevant these days.
Right, like think about the internet and social media.
It's all so fast-paced.
One day something's trending, the next day it's gone.
Makes you wonder if anything really lasts anymore.
It does, doesn't it? It's like we're always chasing the next big thing.
And maybe missing out on what's right in front of us.
Maybe. So
Mm-hmm.
out of these 3 words, which one speaks to you the most?
That's a tough one.
It is. They're all so good.
I think for me it's serendipity.
Oh, good choice. I love that one too.
Yeah, it's just such a beautiful concept. Being open to the unexpected.
Totally. And who knows what amazing things we might discover along the way.
Exactly.
All right, so we've tackled some awesome words.
We have.
Now get ready because we're about to level up.
Oh.
We're moving on to phrases.
Okay, bring it on.
All right, so we crushed those words.
We did some good word crushing.
We did.
Yeah.
Now get ready because we're moving on to phrases.
Oh, yeah. Phrases, those are fun.
They are. And they're not just a bunch of words strung together,
Right. They've got history, imagery, culture baked right in.
Exactly like they tell a story.
A story in just a few words.
Ooh.
I love it.
Me too. Okay, let's start with a classic. Bite the bullet.
Ooh, that's a good one.
It means facing something unpleasant head on, right?
Yeah, but the origin story is what really makes it fascinating.
Oh, totally. You know where it comes from.
From back in the day before anesthesia, when surgeons would have patients literally bite down on a bullet during surgery.
Can you imagine the pain?
I know, it's wild, right? Talk about facing something difficult.
It gives the phrase a whole new meaning.
It does, doesn't it?
Right,
Like
so
you can
yeah.
really feel the weight of it.
And you can use it for so many things.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like giving a presentation, cleaning out your closet, anything you're dreading.
Exactly. It's like, just got to do it, get it over with.
Bite the bullet and move on. Okay, let's switch gears completely.
Okay, are we coming?
Let's talk about accuracy, precision, hitting the mark.
Hitting the mark. I like it.
And the phrase that perfectly captures that, hit the nail on the head.
Yes, when someone just gets it completely.
Right. They say exactly what you were thinking but couldn't quite articulate.
It's like they read your mind.
Totally.
Yeah.
But of course, the opposite can happen too.
Oh, yeah, when someone misses the mark completely.
It's like their advice or whatever just falls flat.
And it can even make things worse sometimes.
It's a reminder that good communication is about more than just words.
It's about understanding the other person's perspective, finding that connection.
Well said. Okay, now for a phrase that's super relevant in our world today. Jumping on the bandwagon.
Oh, the bandwagon. Everyone's doing it.
Right. And it's kind of a double-edged sword.
How so?
Well, on one hand, we all want to belong to be part of something bigger.
Yeah, that sense of community is powerful.
It is. But then there's that other side, the conformity,
Like, when does following the crowd become a problem?
Exactly. When you stop thinking for yourself, just blindly follow along.
So it's about being aware of your motivations, right?
Totally. Are you doing because you genuinely believe in it?
Or just because everyone else is?
Right. It's a good thing to think about.
Okay, last phrase for this round. And it involves a little bit of secrecy.
Ooh, I like secrets. Me too. The phrase is, let the cat out of the bag.
Ah, yes, spilling the beans.
Exactly. But knowing when to spill them and when to keep quiet, that's the key.
It is. It's about discretion, knowing when to speak up and when to hold back.
And sometimes letting the cat out of the bag, even if it's uncomfortable, can be the right thing to do.
Absolutely. Like if it's a matter of ethics or safety.
Right.
It's all about finding that balance.
Finding that balance between honesty and discretion.
Exactly. And that's not always easy.
Nope. It's a delicate dance.
All right. Get ready for the grand finale. We're talking idioms.
Idioms. Oh, yeah. Those are fun.
They're like little linguistic puzzles.
They are like little mysteries.
But once you crack the code...
you unlock a whole new level of expression.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They make your conversation so much more colorful and engaging.
So true. Okay. What's our first idiom?
Let's talk about breaking the ice.
Ah, classic. We've all been there.
Right. You're meeting someone new, and it's kind of awkward at first.
That silence those first few moments. Exactly. You need a way to ease the tension, get the conversation flowing.
And that's where breaking the ice comes in.
It could be a compliment, a funny observation, anything to get things started.
I like to ask open-ended questions about their interests or hobbies.
That's a good one. I usually go for humor.
Humor always works.
A little self-deprecating humor can go a long way.
People appreciate that.
Okay, let's move on to an idiom that captures those tough decisions. Caught between a rock and a hard place.
Ooh, that was relatable.
It is, isn't it? Like you're stuck with no good options.
Every choice has a downside.
It can be so paralyzing. What do you do when you feel like that?
Sometimes just talking it out with someone helps.
Yeah, just getting that outside perspective.
It can really clarify things, or at least make you feel less alone.
For sure. Okay, last idiom for today, and it's a bit ominous. On thin ice.
Ooh, that sounds dangerous.
It is. It's that feeling of being on the verge of messing up.
Like one wrong move and it's all over.
Exactly. It often comes up when trust has been broken or expectations haven't been met.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And it connects back to that idea of meticulousness.
Right. Being too meticulous can make you afraid to make mistakes.
Afraid to take risks.
Exactly. It's all about balance, isn't it?
Always about balance.
So that wraps up our deep dive into advanced vocabulary.
Wow, we covered a lot.
We did, from single words to phrases to idioms.
And hopefully our listeners are feeling inspired to upgrade their vocabularies.
And remember, it's not just about sounding smart.
Right. It's about expressing yourself in a more powerful and authentic way.
Exactly. So go out there and use those new words, phrases, and idioms.
Don't be afraid to experiment. Have some fun with it.
And who knows, maybe someday you'll be the one coining the next break the ice.
I like it. The power of language is always evolving.
So true. So keep exploring, keep playing with words, and most importantly, keep those conversations flowing.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
That's a wrap on our deep dive.
All right, let's jump right in. Today's deep dive, language learning. We're following Ava's journey to English fluency. And get this, we have her actual podcast to guide us. It's amazing. We hear everything, all the ups and downs, like a real behind the scenes look. She goes from beginner to fluent in just 2 years.
Yeah, it's like having a front row seat to her progress, not just the final polished result, but the real, sometimes messy journey. That's where the real learning is, right?
Totally. And speaking of messy, her podcast starts right when she arrives in London. University lectures, trying to order coffee, talk about a baptism by fire. I mean, even watching Friends was a challenge at first. Can you imagine being surrounded by English 24/7 as a beginner?
Total sensory overload, right? Think about it. Even in our native languages, we don't catch every single word. Now imagine doing that in a language you're still learning while also trying to learn vocabulary and grammar. No wonder she felt overwhelmed at first.
There's this one scene in her podcast. She's in her first university lecture. The professor's talking about fundamental principles, and she's just like, fundamental what now?
Yeah.
I think we've all been there at some point in our learning journey.
Oh, absolutely. That feeling of being lost, wanting to give up. It's a common hurdle. But, and this is what I find so inspiring about Ava, she didn't quit. She came up with this clever strategy. Immersion through listening, but with a twist.
Okay, now I'm really curious. What was the twist?
Well, instead of jumping into really complex stuff, she started with podcasts on everyday topics. The key. She listened at a slower speed at first. Then, as she got comfortable, she gradually increased the speed.
Brilliant. Easing yourself in instead of diving head first. Did she mention what types of podcasts worked best?
Yeah, she was into conversational podcasts, like people just chatting about daily life or news. She said it helped her get used to the rhythm and flow of natural speech, way different from that formal, structured language you find in textbooks.
That makes sense. It's how people actually talk, not that perfect grammar you see in books. Did she use any other methods for listening?
Oh, yeah. Audiobooks, but she always had the physical book too, so she could follow along. A great way to connect the spoken and written word. Plus, she rewatched familiar shows like Friends with subtitles. The goal was to pick up common phrases and get used to the natural speed.
So it's not just about quantity, it's quality and strategy. What surprised you most about how Ava approached this listening phase?
Honestly, her patience, the way she gradually increased the difficulty. She didn't expect to understand everything immediately. She understood that progress takes time and was willing to put in the work. It's a great reminder that language learning is a marathon, not a sprint.
Absolutely. So we've tackled the listening hurdle, but what about speaking? That's often the scariest part for language learners. Coming up next, we'll dive into how Ava went from being terrified to order coffee to competently chatting with locals. Buckle up, it's a wild ride.
If listening was a hurdle, speaking was like climbing a mountain for Ava. That feeling, like having to build sentences on the spot, pronunciation worries, that inner voice saying, what if I mess up? It's enough to make you just want to stay silent.
Oh, tell me about it. And Ava's podcast really captures that anxiety. She actually shares this recording of herself trying to order a coffee.
Yeah.
She wants a large, but all that comes out is, I want big coffee.
It's kind of painful, but so relatable. I've totally been there in my own language learning.
It happens to everyone, that fear of speaking, making mistakes, sounding silly, it can be paralyzing. But here's the thing about Ava. Instead of letting fear win, she tackled it head on.
That's brave. How'd she conquer this speaking mountain? Did she have a plan?
She did. A multi-pronged approach, starting with the basics, practicing phrases and pronunciation alone, in front of a mirror, low pressure, Then, conversation groups with other English learners. It's a safe space to practice, everyone's in the same boat, no need to be perfect. That's a great idea. A supportive environment, making mistakes, learning together.
Did she mention what was helpful about those groups specifically?
She said they helped her overcome that initial fear of speaking. She realized everyone makes mistakes. It's okay to laugh at yourself sometimes. It's all part of the process. But she didn't stop there. She knew she had to push further, so she started talking to locals, even if it meant stumbling through sentences or repeating herself.
Wow, that takes guts. Putting herself out there, knowing she might make mistakes with native speakers. Did she have any strategies for when she felt lost for words?
Oh yeah, Ava always had this little notebook with key phrases for different situations, and she wasn't afraid to ask people to repeat or speak slower. Resourcefulness, not letting awkwardness stop her.
Such a good tip. It's easy to feel embarrassed, but most people are patient when you're making an effort. But she didn't just rely on random conversations, did she? Nope. Ava took a speaking course focused on role-playing everyday situations, ordering food, asking directions, small talk, all those things that can be nerve-wracking. She said it was super helpful to practice in a structured environment, get feedback from a teacher and other students.
It's like she was systematically building up her speaking muscle, targeting different communication skills. Did the podcast mention how she felt about all this speaking practice? Did the fear ever go away?
It's amazing. Over time, the fear just kind of faded. The more she spoke, the more confident she became. She realized people were patient and mistakes were just part of learning. That mindset shift is crucial for anyone learning a new language.
It sounds like she embraced progress over perfection. Not about sounding native overnight, but constantly challenging yourself, getting out of your comfort zone. It's so inspiring.
It is. And speaking of pushing boundaries, Ava's journey takes another turn with reading. From children's books to complex academic texts, she finds a way to not just understand, but enjoy reading in English. We'll dig into that fascinating part after a quick... You know what? No break. Let's keep going.
All right, diving right back in. We're on Ava's language learning journey, and now it's all about reading. What's fascinating is she goes from overwhelmed by academic jargon to actually enjoying reading in English. That's quite a change.
It is, and it shows how those language skills, they kind of build on each other. Remember how she nailed listening first? That really set her up for success with reading.
Right. That scene in the library comes to mind. She's staring at her textbook, totally lost, all that comprehensive analysis. And technical terms, it's like hitting a vocab wall. I can almost feel that panic. Did she say how she got past that feeling?
She did. And it's a strategy that could help a lot of learners. It's called a graded approach. Instead of forcing herself to understand those tough academic texts right away, she started simpler, like children's books, graded readers, those books made for language learners. Clear language, familiar themes, anything approachable.
That's smart, like building up your reading stamina, starting small before a marathon. Did she mention any specific books or authors she liked early on?
Not specific titles, but she did say children's books were surprisingly helpful. Simple language, engaging stories, often with pictures to help you understand. She also liked graphic novels. The visuals and text together made it easier to follow.
Great tip. It's all about finding stuff you actually enjoy reading, makes learning more fun. So as she got more confident, did she move on to harder stuff?
Absolutely. Gradually, she increased the difficulty, moving to news articles, then short stories, and finally, yes, even those tough textbooks. But here's the thing. She didn't just passively read. She actively engaged with the text, using different strategies to understand better.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What did actively engaging look like for Ava? Any specific techniques?
Definitely. Ava loved using dictionaries, not just for the meaning of words, but for those little nuances, how they're used in different contexts. She also kept a vocabulary journal, writing down new words, even drawing pictures to help her remember.
That's clever, making those unfamiliar words more tangible and memorable, like creating your own personalized dictionary tailored to your learning journey.
Exactly. And another trick, reading aloud. It helped with pronunciation, of course, but also made her slow down, absorb each sentence. Great way to internalize the rhythm of the language.
It's like training your brain to process the language on all levels, visually, orally, even kinesthetically. Did she talk about how she felt when she started using these active reading strategies?
She said it made a huge difference. At first, it felt unnatural, slow, but over time, it became automatic, and she remembered more, enjoyed reading more. It's a good reminder. Sometimes slowing down actually speeds up your learning in the long run.
So true. It's about finding what works for you and being patient. So listening, speaking, reading. We can't forget writing. Grammar struggles, finding the right words. Writing can be tough for language learners. Ready to unpack Ava's writing journey?
Absolutely. Writing is often seen as the hardest skill, right?
Right.
You need good vocabulary, grammar, but also style, tone, organization. And Ava's podcast gives us this raw look at her first essay draft in English. Short sentences, grammar errors, lack of flow, it's all there, something many learners can relate to.
Oh, I know I can. I remember those early days writing in another language. It feels like you're trying to express yourself with one hand tied behind your back. Did Ava share how she tackled those early writing challenges?
She did. It's simple but effective. She started a daily journal. Not about perfect grammar or fancy writing, just getting comfortable expressing herself, even if it was just a few sentences at first.
Great starting point. Takes the pressure off, lets you focus on getting your thoughts down. Did she mention how she dealt with those grammar gremlins we all face in a new language?
Oh, yeah. Ava embraced technology. She became a pro at using grammar checking tools to find her common errors and learn from them. But the key is, she didn't just blindly accept the corrections. She took time to understand the why. She'd look up grammar rules, do practice exercises, really trying to learn the correct way.
That's smart. Not just fixing the mistake, but understanding it to avoid it next time. But she didn't just rely on grammar checkers, right?
Nope. Ava knew feedback from others was important. She'd ask teachers, classmates, even friends to read her writing, give suggestions. It's a great way to get a fresh perspective, find areas to improve.
Like having an extra set of eyes to catch what you might miss. Did she mention any specific feedback that was especially helpful?
She did. Ava found feedback on the overall structure and organization super helpful. She realized she wrote in short, choppy sentences, and her ideas weren't always in a logical order, so she started focusing on topic sentences, transitions, the flow of her writing. She even mentioned mastering connectors, words like however, therefore, in contrast, to make her writing smoother and more sophisticated.
Those little connecting words make such a difference. So by the end of her 2 years, had she overcome those writing hurdles?
She had. Ava was writing well-structured essays, expressing herself clearly and confidently. She even gave a presentation in English, showing off her fluency to her classmates and professors. Just goes to show, consistent effort, targeted practice, and embracing mistakes really pays off.
Ava's story is truly inspiring. She went from lost and overwhelmed to owning the English language in just 2 years. It's a powerful reminder that fluency isn't about being perfect, but about communicating effectively, expressing yourself.
Totally agree. Ava's journey shows fluency as a process, not a destination. It's taking small steps every day, embracing those stumbles, finding joy in learning. It's a journey anyone can take, no matter where they start.
So for our listeners on their own language learning adventures, what's the key takeaway from Ava's experience?
If we boil down all of Ava's wisdom into one question, it's this. What's one small thing you can do today to use more English? Could be listening to a podcast, reading an article, or even just thinking about your day in English. Every step counts.
That's a great question to think about as we wrap up our deep dive. So to everyone listening, remember Ava's story. Embrace the challenge, celebrate those wins, and never stop exploring language learning. Until next time, keep those ears tuned in, those tongues practicing, and those minds open to new possibilities.